Hello, welcome to Meant to Move podcast. I'm Vanessa, your host. So nice to have you back, or so nice to welcome you here. This week in season 2 of Meant to Move, I have our second roundtable with some of my expert coach friends who I'm really, really glad to welcome some new faces and some welcoming back. So this week I have Jen Dugard, Nikki Rubino, and Dexter Jamal. And you haven't met Dexter, so he'll introduce himself as he comes in. He is an incredible educator and coach from Singapore, and I've had the pleasure of knowing him for quite a few years. And this topic is big. We are talking about the current trend through so many podcasts, through so much research about the differences in female sex and men gendered sex training. I want to caveat this that we are talking about biological sex throughout this entire podcast. So please take that into account as you're listening to this. And I would also really like to caveat this podcast by saying that I'm going to be showing you some clips from Dr. Stacey Sims, who is pretty prolific in this space, particularly in women's health. And I think it's really important to remember that you can like someone's overall message and what they do in the media or, in their work, in their public life, but still not agree with them 100%. And I think that this topic really starts to shine through the more of these kind of roundtables that we do, because we see so many of these kind of prolific public speakers talk about quite polarizing topics, and what often doesn't get taken into account when you see an Instagram clip of these kinds of things is the nuance and the context. And this is so important when it comes to health. So, so important, because there isn't a one size fits all. There's no best practice a lot of the time when it comes to health. And particularly when we start to see this kind of men versus women rhetoric happening in media, I think it's really important for us to understand, number one, why that's kind of happening and the maybe the cultural or social elements behind that. But then how do we cut through that noise and find out what's useful for us as an individual, as a coach, as someone who's just trying to sort it out in their own body as well? So I really value the insight that Nikki, Jen, and Dexter bring to this conversation. And thanks, Dexter, for being the male talking in such a challenging topic. We wholeheartedly appreciate it. And honestly, I thought you brought some amazing things to the table. So without further ado, here is the chat. Hello, welcome to Meant to Move, roundtable number 2. My name is Vanessa. I am your host, and I have 3 excellent humans with me. And these are what I love to say in real life coaches, people who do this day in, day out. And this is what the roundtables are about. It's about understanding what our researchers are talking about, but coming back to these incredible humans to get their actual opinion on how this works in the real life. And if you've recently tuned into our roundtable number 1, you would have met Nikki and you would have met Jen. Welcome back, ladies. Thank you. But you haven't met Dexter. So in 60 seconds, Dex, please tell us a little bit about you.
Everyone, it's really a pleasure to be here among these wonderful human beings. My name is Dexter. I've been in the health and fitness industry for over 2 decades right now. So yeah, it's my first job right out of the army. Have spent the past few years developing curriculum for an academy here in Singapore, and over the past 5 years, kind of switched specialization towards more coaching. So I'm both ICF and board certified health coach as well. I think the significance of how I see coaching blends in and integrates with what I do on the gym floor is the missing link I've actually been looking for years, right? Because I've come to understand and appreciate a lot more about what training a biopsychosocial human being actually means. So, yeah, really excited to be here. So thank you, Ness.
Thank you. And I love that you lent in with the biopsychosocial, because there is a bit of that that's going to happen in the questions today. And so I have sent these beautiful humans 3 clips And each one of these clips features a very prolific human in terms of, I suppose, female health and podcasting and research. It's Dr. Stacey Sims. I have some mixed opinions and I have some interesting videos, and I'm going to pop these in. I'm going to lay them over what we're doing today. But the main block, what we're talking about today, are the differences in training men and women, because we hear a lot about this. It's a super buzz topic in the industry. And I think I want to take it outside of the scope of menopause for now, because I think that is definitely a time in life where we're going to get a little bit more specific. But if we're looking at kind of just general training for men and women, there's some pretty wild things being said. And I'm going to refer to one of the first videos that I lent in with Dr. Stacey.
When we talk about in the moment, if we're looking at like a EMOM, something to that effect, women can eke out more reps every minute, but it won't be as fast as men. And we can see when we're looking at doing several rounds of an EMOM that women towards the end will do much better than men because they have had the time to warm up and their muscle fibers are firing. So we look at like the third round of a 5-minute EMOM and the women are like, great. And the men are like, ugh, I'm done. And it has to do with the fielding differences. So if we take that into context and look at how are we training and what are we doing, we might want to rethink how we are scoping rounds and reps for women versus men, and noting that that's more of a top end. Of course, any movement is good for both sexes. So when we start getting into the nuances, that's where we want to start looking at, okay, what's training history? What have you been doing? What do we need to improve? But in general, there is this misstep that women are not getting the same type of training stress as men when they do the same thing. When we talk about in the moment,
and she talks about gendered differences in EMOMs. So if you don't know what an EMOM is, everybody, it's an every minute on the minute kind of workout program or regime or workout of the day. And she basically says women are better at endurance, men are better at power. And she says it pretty vaguely. And I'm really interested when you see these types of videos from someone who's as prolific as Dr. Stacey, what comes up? I'm going to go to you, Jen, because I see it there bubbling under the surface. It's bubbly.
Me first.
You first. I'm throwing you under the bus. What did you think when you saw that video?
You know, I think there's a bigger layer to put over this to begin with. And I think the problem with social media is it's this or that. It's definitive. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing, like Stacey Sims is saying all of these things, and she says, well, you know, men are bad at this and women are good at this and vice versa. Is it that simple? Is it that simple to say men do this better and women do that better? Some men may do this better. Some women may do this better. I truly believe, obviously there's the difference in a woman's physiology and all of that kind of thing. The more that I look into it and the more that I look at the research, I'm kind of zooming out away from this, like men do this, women do this kind of training, and going, it needs to be more nuanced based on the individual. And for a woman, there needs to be more nuance potentially based on her cycle. But I'm probably going straight into other
do it
things here, but you know, these trainers that are aligning with, you know, you must do this on this day of the month and this on this day of the month and this on this day of the month. Is it that simple? Even though that feels technical and complicated to some people. Like if we're telling a woman not to strength train for 1 to 2 weeks of the month, how are we going to get progressive overload and actually train her and get the results that we wanted to get? So I'm going to go back in the gray with this one. And I think that social media tells us one thing is true and we can either agree with it because it aligns with our bias and jump on the bandwagon and then go shouting it from the rooftops. It's a lot more challenging to sit in the gray and, well, yeah, I'm going to take a bit of that and a bit of that, and then I'm going to look at the individual in front of me, and then I'm going to choose what is right for them. So if I was to say, do I align with that comment or not? I'm going to say no, and I can't pull up studies and all that kind of thing, but I'm not going to sit in the camp of women are better at endurance and men are better at power.
Yes. Amazing. All right. Nikki or Dex, who's up?
I feel like I don't want to follow Dex. I feel he's going to go all philosophical. Okay, I'll jump on it. But yeah, I agree with Jen. It's just like, it also takes into account, it's like, well, what are they training for, and how long have they been doing that bias for? Like, you've got women Olympic weightlifters, you've got female male ballerinas. It's just like,
Yep.
one's like, potentially male bias, the other one's female bias, but it doesn't really matter. Like, what is your body moving towards, and what do you enjoy? What is it physically capable of? I think needs to be addressed as well. Like, both men and women can do whatever the hell they like, they love, they can physically do. And if you can't physically do it, but you want to, there's ways that you can change and adapt your body and your strength and your ability to be able to do the thing that you want to do for as long as you want to. I hate, like, guy push-ups, girl push-ups, like this.
You can say fuck. It's totally fine. We're good for the swears.
It's like, what are you training for? What do you want to do? What do you want to continue to do? That's what I believe we should be training for. And it's like, the whole thing of hormones and all that kind of jazz is very specific to the person. Some people, depending on where they are in their cycle, like, I've got beast mode week, and I'm like, sweet. My beast mode is someone else's, like, I need to sit on the couch and just do my gentle breathing. Yep. Like, it's never going to be in sync with another physical human. Like, it's you. You do what's best for you, and hopefully your coach understands you to be able to provide for you what you specifically need.
Yeah, for sure.
And
love
rant.
That.
Guys and girls can train together. It's okay.
All right, Dexter, let's do it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, adding on to what Jen and Nikki have shared, I totally agree. Something that I've been advocating for a while now to my new mentees and trainees is that being in the health and fitness industry, there isn't really a black and white. It's just many shades of gray, adding to Jen's point. And I think it's also important that we look at training specificity. We have a specific goal in mind. I am someone who believes that whether you're a male or a female, if you set out to train with the same goal in mind, a structured program, and more importantly, having a good coach, I think that's going to be a game changer. So another example is this, right? So I have been doing kettlebell sport for a while now.
I'm so glad you brought this up. Yes.
And on my Instagram feed of late, interestingly, the algorithm has been showing me plenty of amazingly strong female Russian athletes cranking out numbers that I would be sitting here and thinking, wow, that's possible? I mean, then are we going to look at purely biology, or could we also attribute a bit of that success to, say, belief system? Say, for example, if you are a Russian little girl growing up in that kind of environment where everyone around you is just lifting kettlebells for fun, you grow up in that kind of environment, thinking and telling yourself that you will one day be as good as the rest that have come before you. I think getting into that right psychic and belief system dictates what a lot of us can do and will do eventually. So it's really just more than simply a blanket statement saying, men can do this better, women can do that better.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I took not quite personal offense to that video, but nearly, because I am probably the definition genetically as well of a power athlete. Because funnily enough, you brought Russians into it. Russians and Chinese are really, really good early on identifying certain body types and phenotypes that actually do really well in different types of sports. I have one of the most on-point phenotypes for a female gymnast, as you would probably recognize if you saw me. Female gymnastics is mostly a power-based sport. I remember doing endurance-based events at school, and I just was sucky at them. I was terrible at them. I have a higher percentage fast twitch fiber. And not only do statements like that from someone as well respected as Stacey frustrate the crap out of me, but it's also like, I really enjoy power-based training. We've been talking about women and strength-based training and getting out of this like endurance Pilates or, only do yoga or only do light weights. And I think that sometimes she might not mean to contradict herself, but that's almost what it feels like in a way, is because that message is confusing, because now you're generalizing women as better endurance athletes and men as more power-based athletes. And you're right, it comes down to your biology and your preference. Like, there's no reason why I couldn't train to become a better endurance athlete. Yes, I might have a genetic window, but it'd take me a long time to hit that genetic window of endurance before my head gave out, believe me. And this biopsychosocial element is huge. I came from a family of people who just wanted to play sport. We just played sport. There was no, you have to do this, you have to do that. No, we just did it all. And that's a huge challenge to men and women's training. And one of the videos, I'll layer it in as well.
What is the reason why people hear what you guys say when you're talking about exercise and they don't do it? They don't start.
It's hard.
What set of reasons make it hard?
Well, for women, it's set up in a gendered environment. Like I always use the example of a woman who is an interest in strength training. If they go to a typical 24-hour fitness or another brand gym that's out there, they'll walk in and they'll say, yep, I want to join. And the membership person most often will say, great, here's the class schedule. This is where we have our spin classes. This is where we do our boot camp classes. They never direct them to the lifting platforms. They never look and say, hey, here are the way to get strong, because they are under the assumption through sociocultural ideas that a woman is coming to the gym to lose weight, not to get strong, not to gain muscle,
not to recomposition.
Right. But if a man walks in, then it's always great, here's the lifting platform. We have X amount of barbells. We have X amount of bumper plates. How much weight do you want to gain? Do you want to work with someone to help you build that mass?
Was her actually making the right comment. I believe, you might think differently. When we enter in gym spaces, are they gendered environments? Do they exclude or include? Are they exclusive or inclusive when it comes down to where women like to train, where men like to train, where we're shown how and what to train? What's your thoughts on this kind of current environment of training for men and women? And this time I'll start with you, Nikki.
I just think of, I did membership sales in gyms in London circa 2005. I remember taking people around, and I was a little different because one, I was the Aussie accent. I actually asked people what they physically wanted. And I remember learning how to give someone a tour. And it's like, the males, we take this route in and around the gym. The females, we take this route in and around the gym. If you want to save time, the women don't really need to see that. And I was just like, hang on, what? And this was way before I was actually starting to be a coach or anything like that. But I found that kind of weird because back then I was like, all right, I was into spin, and I still like to lift things. It's like, I think it's been about 10 to 15 years. I lift things and I crawl around on the floor. So I was like, where's the little play area? Yeah, I felt that it was pretty segmented in that type of scenario, just taking a tour. And then when I think about when I came back and I was training in a big brand gym box name, won't name it. And there was the first thing that I was shown was, here's the women's section. And back then, I wanted to lift some weights. I'm a big boned person. I'm broad. I like heavy things. I was shown, it's this is the women's area. It was one of those, a little circuit scenario with the air push machine. I don't even know what they're called. You know, the things that they don't even have weights, but you can just it's resisted air or whatever the hell it is. And I must have just had this dumbfound look on my face. And he's like, oh, is this not what you want? I was like, well, there's no weights in here. And even back then, so this is 2015, 2013, 2014. And I was like, is this all I have? So I got shown that little air machine. 2, there was the spin room. Okay. It had black lights and everything and some dance music playing at the time. I'm like, all right, that appeals to me a little bit. But I was barely even shown the weights area. And it was all we bypassed it. We literally walked through the weights area to get to this spin room. So it's I was shown, here's your circuit area, whatever the hell that is. Walked through the gym. Here's your spin studio. This is where we do aerobics. There's your treadmills and your cross trainers. And I was just like, I don't want this. I've just spent 15, 20 minutes telling you I don't want this. But that's everything that I was shown. And anything that I would ask, it's I was just kind of dismissed. It's but I told you what I want. Listen. But yeah, but my at the time, one of my mates got shown the same gym, completely different scenario. But he wanted to do the aerobics and the spin. I was like, what? No.
So essentially bad sales, number one, but yeah, that pre-designed route, which is super interesting. And to be honest, I haven't done a tour of a gym recently, so I haven't noticed if they've changed a lot of that, but that speaks volumes to me. Yeah.
In my defense, it was like 10, 12, 15 years ago. Things may have changed. Don't know if they have, but yeah, it was a little eye-opening.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Dex, do you want to add?
I mean, I guess it's very similar when I first started out as well. I mean, I also started my career as a membership sales in a big box. And yeah, I mean, after hearing what Nikki shared, it kind of brought back memories of how I would then guide the females towards the studio. This is the Les Meal classes. You have the body balance here. But yeah, I think thinking back, I'm just a little bit saddened by how the system boxes people up without really paying attention to what they actually need. So I mean, I definitely see that happening, and of course, I also haven't been into a big box gym recently these days, so I'm not sure if that has changed. I don't think much has changed though, but I'm definitely then grateful for things like CrossFit and recently High Rocks. We have more of these inspiring stories coming out of these events, seeing very, very strong women nailing these events, and I think it's really, really heartwarming to see that.
Yeah, nice. That's a good additive. I like that. Yeah, Jen?
I just did join a beatbox gym. Here
we go.
Right. And I was like, I want to go do some proper strength training where there are machines and there are like the like strength machines rather than a CrossFit box that doesn't really have any of that stuff. I feel like it's changing. But I also think, I was thinking about it. So when I went into the gym, I went into two. One of them is pretty much only weights. They don't do, it's in any time that's taken out their classes room. So it's like, unless you want to do weights, you're kind of not going there. The other one had a lot of other things. And I think that there's two factors at play here. I think what in that podcast episode, and I'm going to call out the age of Stacey Sims, who I think is about 10 years older than me. And I think that we need to make sure that we're just not carrying stories with us from what was previous to what is now, because that is potentially her experience. However, I do think that it's going to depend on two factors. Number one, what is the age and the kind of demographic of the salesperson giving the tour? And I say that because if that's a young, I'm going to say between the age of 20 and 30, they're young female, they're probably going to show another young female the weight section. Yep. The other thing I think, and it depends on the person giving the tour, is what story have they made up about the person that's coming? So when I walked into both of these gyms, I had training gear on, like I'm not massively muscular, but I've obviously lifted weights, and I didn't necessarily, I got shown where the rooms were, but it was like, this is the weights room and this is, and in this particular gym, you did have to walk through the weights room, but they did show me to that equipment. If I'd have walked in, or if my mum had walked in, I wonder what her journey would have been.
Yeah.
I wonder what story the membership people are making up about the person. And the lesson in that is ask them. Like, what are you coming in for? What do you want to learn? What part of the gym do you want us to show you? And then I do think there's a lens over the top of that, of no matter what part of the gym we feel like we want to see, is if we can look at this through a lens of how we can improve. We know that strength training benefits everyone. So how do we give them a well-rounded tour? And if they want to do body pump, awesome, go do body pump. And also we have this area in the weights. And this is similar. This piece of equipment is similar to what you're doing in body pump. So you might feel comfortable to doing that. So I do like to think it's shifting. We've got the rise of women's only strength training environments, all that kind of thing. And I think, again, going back to social media, it's this or this.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question. I want to dive into this kind of gendered element for now. Hands up if you are for a solo gendered training environment, like separate, like not within the same facility. So like female only gym, male only gym. Put your hands up for it.
For it, because I think that it has to be available, but not because I think everyone should choose.
Yes. Interesting. So we've got 2 for and 2 confused thinking about it.
As I sit here and I'm like, well, female only Muay Thai gyms, like I'm about to share a space with downstairs. I am like, for me, it depends on what demographic it is. I'm getting a lot of people around my age, 40 plus, that love a women's only environment. I don't want to hear the grunts and the blah, blah, blah. But I also, like, my animal flow classes are men and women, and my Sassy Senior Squad is men and women.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just like a time, like a gendered certain specific age that just wants female only.
I'm just going to put in my rationale for why I asked this question. The reason why I asked this question is because I think still with the stories and the previous history, women may feel safer, like you said, 40 plus or even younger might feel safer training in an all women's environment. But I also think that if we're having all women environments, men can have all men's environments, because I think that also can create a really positive way to express emotion and to create connection and friends, and men are way lonelier than females are when it comes to social connections. Okay, so I actually think that having gendered spaces is quite useful, in my opinion, right? Having the option to have gendered spaces. What I don't like is a women's section in a gym that is meant to be for everyone. That's what I don't like personally. And I'm curious to see what you think.
I think it depends on accessibility-ness, doesn't it? So my head goes straight to, what country are we in, number one? What religions are we dealing with, number two? Having a women's only section in a big box gym where everyone can go to could be an entry to strength training that then puts them on the gym floor. The other side of the solo environments, like I heard what you said around, or I heard you say, it's a safe space for men to go to. I also think my brain goes, it could be a very toxic place for men to be in. And then from a female perspective, it would be awesome to have all these women supporting each other. Also could be quite a toxic environment for all. So it's all going to come to, like, what is the reason for it? What philosophy and what's that word, like, culture are we creating in these environments? And what is the purpose is the biggest lens.
It's a great call. Yeah. Dex?
Yeah, no, I mean, from a hardware perspective, I kind of like the idea as well, but I'm thinking it's not as simple as just having a space curated like that. I think someone needs to be steering it, in terms of, managing the culture, the crowd. I think it takes both hardware and software to kind of make it work, but I can see where you're coming from. And in very, very land scarce Singapore, because we are so tiny, business owners would be thinking of maximizing and optimizing space as much as they can. I reckon the female-only section in a gym space is probably what business owner would tend to default to, because there isn't enough space, or it's just too expensive to have another space specially curated for a separate gender.
Very interesting. I find this whole topic quite fascinating because there's so much of that kind of religious, cultural, social, political element to it, and it does have quite a charge to it. And I love, Nikki, that you're like, I've just always trained everyone kind of together, and I agree with that. I've done that for most of the time as well. Like my my history, I have done a lot of, I suppose, more male gendered training compared to my female counterparts in the industry, with lots of very kind of high intensity or very, very challenging workouts, which has put me in a different lens. And only now am I actually I'm literally going to be starting work in a female only space part-time. So it's really interesting coming from those different perspectives. But I think it's important to have those different perspectives and to have that conversation of what's my purpose? Where do I feel safe? Yeah, go Nikki. I was just,
I feel that it's like it can be toxic either way, but I feel whether it's like all genders, just male, just female, you need to build the community, the culture, the structure, the rules and regulations around everything. It's like we tolerate this, we don't tolerate this. And it's like if something is not tolerated happens, like see ya. I feel that, because if I think about going to like an all-girls school, which I almost did, and I was like, oh, God, nightmare. I think nothing but mean girls. But then again, I know teachers that just coach in an all-boys school. I'm like, oh my God. So I think you do need that little yin-yang counterbalance, whatever that is. But yeah, just have these structures and these protocols. And it's like, we accept this, we don't accept this. If you violate this rule or violate a person, see ya. Like, we don't tolerate this. We don't stand for this. And I think that needs to have a little bit more of an appearance in and around. It's like the culture and the community, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking back to the main topic that we're looking at here, and the other video that I layered in was another one from Stacey.
What is it that makes men and women different from a physiological standpoint?
From a morphological standpoint, men have more of our fast twitch fibers. Women are born with more endurant fibers.
Which is muscle, right?
When we're talking about muscle, yeah. So men have more of the ability to do power and really fast, energetic type activities, or women are more attuned to endurant type activities. This affects metabolism, it affects blood glucose homeostasis. When we're looking at bone and bone density, men have stronger bones. They can acquire more load. They hold on to it better than women do. We see smaller lungs, smaller heart, less hemoglobin in women than men, and that's an offshoot of what testosterone does. So there are just basic physiological differences between XX and XY that people don't really assimilate and understand. And the way I like to say it is, you go into a shop and you have a men's section and a women's section, and there are touch points on the external that really identify gender and or sex. But when you look intrinsically, no one is identifying those touch points until now.
What is it that makes men and women?
Talking about, again, she goes into these kind of gendered differences between the male and female body without actually going into any sex hormone differences, which I would probably argue are the more important differences in our bodies than, say, fast twitch muscle fiber and heart size and things like that. The big question that I want to ask you, and we can go as nuanced or as complicated as you like, should men and women train differently? It was like a pen drop there. Here you go. Go.
I'm just going to bring it down to, it's like, what are you training for? Like, what outcome are you trying? Like, what's the outcome? Shouldn't that dictate what the training is?
Yeah.
And then you put the systems in place. And whether that's a guy, it's a girl, like, it's individual to that person, not necessarily guy/girl.
Yeah.
The human in front of you.
Good start. Yep. Who wants to add? Go, Jen.
I think, I don't agree with men should train differently than women as a statement, with all of the boundaries that have been put around it. I do believe that we need to look at the individual. I do believe that there's a bigger variation across a female's lifespan, and we need to take that into consideration. I do believe that women have not been given as much education about their unique body, and we've just been bundled into you have a body, move it kind of space. So I don't know if I said no. I mean, so the answer is yes, men need to train different than women, but there's no specific prescription in the way that a woman should train on any given day based upon her physiology. And there are certain things that we need to be more aware of, whether she's, a teenager, understanding her pelvic floor. Does she have understanding her cycle. Does she have a hypertonic pelvic? Has she got signs and symptoms that we've not taught her about? Is she now pregnant? We need to take that physiology into consideration, then postpartum, and then at perimenopause and menopause. So I do think the perimenopause and menopause, yes, it's interesting, but there's a whole missing piece that goes way, 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 way further downriver, so that we're not, because what we're doing at the moment is we're dragging these women in perimenopause and menopause out of the river, and we could have prevented them falling in had we looked after them, possibly in their teenage years, definitely in their pregnancy, postpartum years. Yes, they need to be trained differently. No, it's not prescriptive based on some specific, do this on this specific day of the month. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, very cool. I'm really interested, Dexter, to hear this from a male's perspective, because it's sometimes really challenging, I could imagine, for men to navigate these questions. And it's important because you're a coach. So you train women, and, you've got a daughter. So how do you navigate this?
I don't think it's a men versus women kind of statement and, an angle we should be looking at. I think combining what Jen and Nikki have shared, it's really not a man versus woman, but person A versus person B versus person C. We should look at individual has an individual and not because they are a man or a woman. I think that's as simple as it can get. And for me, yes, because I am a coach and I prefer to do coaching in a one-to-one environment and not teach a group class. So everyone shows up differently with their own stories, their own belief system, their own environment. So everyone should be training differently.
That's a nice, profound one to end on. I quite like that.
Yeah, because I think it's about asking more concise questions. Again, that's one challenge we have with social media these days, like Jen has alluded earlier on. Because that 15 to 30 seconds of information nugget, especially if it's coming from someone who's established or simply because someone has a huge following, it ends up being taken too seriously and very often, if not most of the time, out of context. So that's a social media challenge these days, man.
Yeah. I really like that statement, is that everyone should train differently. And I think that that's really the crux of kind of what everyone's been saying, is that we would love to see more people having their focus on them and figuring out for their body, whether they are a female or a male, understanding how their body changes over time, how different environments and cultural beliefs shape the way that we train. I find this really, really interesting. Is there something that over these kind of gender differences that we've seen perhaps throughout the years that men can learn from the way that women train or maybe have trained? Does anything come to mind when I say that?
I think that there's I'm not sure the lens that you want to look through, but I think that there's a learning for a male trainer, for example, or a male coach, to understand that she is going to have more variation in how she shows up on any given day. And whilst we can write a very similar program, what is important is having the skills and the ability to find out what is happening for her on that day and adjusting the program accordingly on a daily basis. And that may mean going slightly outside of the written program. I think that's probably the biggest. And yeah, if you're 18, 20, 25-year-old male who has a woman that has a 10-year-old child, to understand that there's more questions that need to be asked about that woman. And then that comes down to then pre-screening. A lot of our gyms or our big box gyms are run fundamentally by men, yet there's very little, if no, pre-screening that happens when anyone really, but when a woman comes through the door. So, I do believe there could be a gendered pre-screening that would be really helpful. I think fucking ticking the box of getting gyms to actually do a pre-screening would be the first step. But then once they are doing it, a gendered one would be a really, really good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great learning. I think that's a really, really, really good one. Anyone?
I'll just follow up for that as well, though, because then you go, well, what do they do with that pre-screening? So then we move into education of our trainers and making sure that we're equipping our trainers with education around what it is to be a woman, which is very interesting when I'm listening to myself say that, and we're going, well, we don't need to treat women that differently. Well, yes, we need to be able to take the same program that you're writing for a man and then put a female lens over it with that education around, menstrual cycle, pre and postnatal, perimenopause, menopause.
I think that you're on the money here, because I don't think that there should be a difference in training. There should be a difference in understanding. And I think that this is the biggest component of what we're talking about, and where a lot of women perhaps maybe get frustrated because they don't feel understood, because, like you said, the coaching and the education that's available to most people isn't there. I remember Cert 3 and Cert 4, there was really nothing in there about any hormonal differences and what that does to a female across their life. And even for men, men have hormonal changes across their life. And so most coaches aren't given those tools. And if they're not given those tools, then they don't have the understanding of what those hormonal changes could be, to then make those micro adjustments if they need to happen for the individual. So That's the nuance, because it's not about treating people differently or training them differently. It's about understanding. Nikki, you look thoughtful.
No, I'm just thinking back. It's like I've forgotten the original question, but I like the conversation where this is going, and I think like as we're saying, it does come down to the actual individual. And I just think back. There's two things that I was just thinking of then. Once I finished my Cert 3 and 4, and I was just like, what? Like I can go coach people? Is that it? Is that what? I need more information, please. So the first company that I was with, I remember feeling my very first like diastasis belly, and I was like, where the hell did 4 of my fingers just go? Like, what? And that just shit, like I hadn't done any pre or postnatal back then, and that just like literally just put up a red flag, just going, hell, what the hell happens? And so I was learning about all of that. And that was like, oh, and this was just an add-on that I now think is normal, but not everyone has access to that information. Thank you, Jen. They do now. But yeah, but that's like should be kind of common knowledge as a new trainer. That freaked me the hell out. And that's when I was like, there's so much that I don't know. And then across the years, like learning about hypermobility and all that kind of stuff and the individual nuances for people. We actually had a discussion in the animal flow class on the weekend where we've got like, we referred to everyone as pasta. I don't know how we got on there. I referred to a hypermobile person as a floppy noodle, and it went around from here. So it was like,
Yep.
you know, one person is a floppy noodle. She has to find stability in a lot of the joints. Yeah. And then you've got
floppy noodle present.
The half al dente pasta in the back corner where the bottom half of him is really mobile, but the top half of him tends to be like quite stiff. So it's just like, he's like, yep, the bottom half of him, here's half a pasta sticking out of a pot. I don't know if this makes sense to anybody else, but it did to us on the day. But I was just like, yeah, taking those individual nuances in a group class, like it's not exactly viable, or can the coach do it if you've got like 20 people in your Les Mills or whatever. But if you're working with like one-to-ones in the small group scenarios, which sounds like myself and Dexter kind of like, you know, you can laser in. So we're going to be doing the same things, but you can focus on this for stability. You're going to focus on this because your lower body's a little bit more mobile than your upper body. And just being able to navigate the individual humans that are in front of you as a collective, I feel like that is great group fitness.
100%.
Can't be feasible if you've got like 20 people in class, and I don't know how to do that from, you know, stand up on a stage and look at everyone, but I feel that that's the nuances that people need, or at least to understand their own bodies to be able to move well. I don't know. I think I might have just been ranting.
I think you're spot on, and it's people think that this is complicated, and it's really not, especially if you have a pre-screening, because in that pre-screening process, you learn about someone's body, but you help them to understand their body. And then when you go into even a group training environment, it's not that hard to rattle off all of the different things. It might not all happen on the first squat, but it will happen throughout the class. And then they're the same people coming back again. So they then self-select what they know is right for them. So really our job is to empower the individual with education so that they have the autonomy to choose what is right for them in any given environment. And if we stop thinking that that is so hard and get some fundamental screenings in place for men and women from the get-go, our industry would change massively and everybody would be moving in a much better way.
Safer.
Yeah, I feel that pre-screen is not just for the coach. It should tell that individual something about themselves, at least like one thing, and then it accumulates from there. But they should come away from that screening going, oh, like that. This is the movement for me, or that's something that I need to avoid just for now. Like it's a two-way education street.
Yep, I like this. It's so good. Dexter.
Well, I mean, Ness, I agree with you. You know, when you said it's not only about it's not only about the knowing and education. It's also about the understanding. And you know, with understanding, I feel that it requires effort. It requires humility and a desire to understand, and that, you know, simply put, could show up in the form of empathy. I think, I mean, saying this from observation, but I feel that a lot of, say, especially male trainers, they may not exactly want to know that much, because knowing that much requires more work on their part. it's easier to just, yay, everyone is strength and hypertrophy and fat loss, right? Without giving due consideration for, the differences in physiology and of course, giving enough attention to how different individual respond differently in terms of how their nervous system interacts with the muscular system and stuff. So unfortunately, I think, well, I mean, at least maybe in this part of the world, or at least where I'm based in, that's what I'm seeing more of actually.
And that's a hard stretch. I think that, we've come at it from that female lens of, okay, women need more understanding, but maybe men need to be taught more empathy and to be shown that it's okay to have feelings and it's okay to have difficult conversations and to understand women's bodies without it being impolite or weird or rude or all of that kind of, you get that, like you said, that psychosocial challenge where, yeah, that's just the beginning. Now, I know that, Jen, we have to finish off right there. So each one of you has 35 seconds. Is there something that you want to say to the person listening? If they're confused, what can help them see the next step? Jen, you're up first.
I think, Ness, the biggest takeaway for me would be stop or have an awareness when you're leaning into a bias on social media that aligns with what you think and then you're literally running with it. Learn to read research and go do that. And then also go get some credible education on the demographic of people that you're working with. And that means like breaking down who those people are, because there's countless people that I speak to and it's like, yeah, pre and postnatal, I don't work with postnatal women. You dig a little bit deeper, they work with women that have had babies at some point in their life. So really understand who you're working with and get educated about it.
Yep. Dex.
Be curious. I guess, being curious with the individual you are serving, and then when you are actually in service, be present. Because, being present allows you to listen better, understand better, feel a little bit better, and that hopefully guides your professional craft and your approach. So manage the art and then catch up on the science like, Jen mentioned.
I like it. So good. Yeah. Nikki.
From a coach's perspective, learn to listen, like understand your facts, but learn to listen and adapt the facts to the individual that's in front of you. And if you're a member or someone who is getting coached, if you feel uncomfortable in any way, you can say stuff.
Yeah.
There,
I think
you can speak up.
Yeah, it's important to speak up because you, the individual, is what will drive the change in our industry.
Yeah, and not even uncomfortable. Like if you're not sure why you're doing something or whether your coach knows enough about you as an individual, question them. Find out more. It's
okay to ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a dumb question in my mind.
Yeah.
And if your coach doesn't know the answer and tells you they don't know the answer, that's okay. They'll find out. If they make shit up, run.
Yeah.
All right. Amazing. I absolutely love your time. Thank you for spending it with me talking about this very challenging subject. I really appreciate you. To find these guys, it's all in the show notes. I will chat to you again soon.
Thanks, Ness.
See you guys.
Thank you, ladies.
See you, team.
Do you know someone who's struggling with pain or frustration when it comes to exercise? If this episode reminded you of someone, please share this episode with them. Sometimes all it takes is the right information at the right time, and it can make a significant difference. Let's spread the word and help more people find joy in movement.